We're going to go get that next guest, Mr. Scott, up in the box as we speak. Speakity speak. Here we go. Everyone just going to give us a minute. As well as Leggy Time. Thank you for the $10 over on YouTube Super Chat. Saying, Dean, I told you about Adriana Smith a month ago, and you brushed it off. I even made a channel in the Discord hobbies called The Danger of Pro-Life. And now you're talking about it. Now more people are. I don't think that it finished the donation there. I'd like to clarify. I'd like to explain this earlier. I am always thinking about the billion things going on in America and the Trump administration, and there is new things happening every single day. Like recently, it's been like 5 to 10. And I think what that means is that sometimes I could forget to talk about issues that are incredibly important that I should be talking about because I'm thinking about a billion things at once. And for that reason, I actually really appreciate you as well as the other individuals in the Discord of bringing up something that is incredibly important to basically remind me by saying, Dean, you have to put some focus on this. This is really important. It's a bad thing that you're not. I actually appreciate you for that. I really appreciate you for that. Thank you so much once again. But thank you for voicing how you feel, and thank you for the $10 super chat. What's going on, Scott? You MAGA?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me?
I sure can, man. Real quick before...
This is my first time doing this. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure everything was cool.
Awesome. Yeah, real quick before we hop into a debate. Let's see here. Jax, thank you for the $10 over at Venmo, saying thanks for all that you do. Thank you for the donation, man. Rosemary with the $10 says, like you're having a bad day with the guests. It's been all right, 50-50. Thank you for the $10, Rosemary. As well as Haley, thank you so much for the $20 over on Venmo, saying thank you for not letting the right use the 13 Marines for their agenda. Yeah, bro, dude. Oh my God. The right sucks for the military. The right sucks for veterans. And it's all political propaganda that they're somehow better. As well as Mary, thank you so much for the $10 over on Venmo. I appreciate you so much for the love. Jess with the $5 and Haley with the $5. You guys are the best. I haven't gotten around to the PayPal donations, but I'll let you start your argument off, so feel free to take it away.
Why do I support Trump?
Yep.
I don't know. Where do I start? I mean, there's a lot why I support Trump. I just believe that the Democrats and the liberals are basically more socialist, leads to communism. That may be a sensationalizing of it basically, but the policies I don't really support. They're not conservative enough for me. I think
Scott,
a lot of their policies are eroding basically the fabric of America.
I have a question, Scott.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is socialism? Can you define that silly little word for us?
Socialism is basically it's God. Yeah. So I'm freezing up. Yeah, you kind of got me.
Scott,
but I understand where you're coming from.
Scott,
hold on a second.
I said that I don't like you because you are ever so increasingly getting closer to being the glabagloop, would that make any sense at all?
The glabagloop?
The glabagloop. If I said I don't like you because you're getting closer to being quite the glabagloop, would that make any sense to you whatsoever?
No.
No. That wouldn't make any sense to you because I have no fucking clue what a deglabagloop is. You have no fucking clue what I think a deglabagloop is. So I don't. Obviously, what I'm saying is
I understand what socialism is. I understand what you. I understand what you're saying.
I'm
sorry that it froze up. That
you're like you don't know what.
Okay,
but like Democrats because they're getting closer to socialism, but then you can't define.
Hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. I concede. I froze up a little. I don't debate a lot. I understand that it's a governmental system. I understand that it's more like an even Steven kind of system, and capitalism is more like towards the individual.
You're still not defining it at all.
What do you want? What do you want me to tell you? I'm not the professor.
Okay.
You wanted the ordinary guy that you could debate. Okay. I'm kind of an ordinary guy. I'm not the scholar. I wasn't the brightest student. I understand that it's like a political economic theory, okay, but
I have an idea.
I want the textbook definition. I don't know exactly how to give it to you. I know that it has to do a lot with like even distribution and stuff like that.
Actually, no. So socialism and communism, well, maybe a little bit of in a couple, but anyways, socialism specifically, we'll start off with socialism, has nothing to do with the redistribution of wealth or the even distribution of wealth. Socialism is not a mode of wealth redistribution, but rather a mode of ownership of property, right? So under socialism, right, you do not have the privatized ownership of the means of production. They're going to be owned by the workers in which operate the means of production. And
right,
in a nutshell,
kind of like regulated by the community.
Socialism is going to be democracy in the workplace. Now, okay, you told us that Democrats are ever growing closer to socialism. Can you name one Democratic policy that Biden passed, Biden led, Kamala Harris ran on, the current DNC props up, that's socialist?
Healthcare.
Do you mean socialized healthcare? Healthcare for everybody?
Yeah, healthcare.
Okay, so just because the word socialized sounds a lot like the word socialist does not mean that they have anything to do with one another. Socialized healthcare is just free healthcare for everybody. But giving everybody,
it's not free.
Okay, yeah, because you pay for it when you pay taxes. I get it. I'm going to say it anyways. Free healthcare for everybody. But free
you
healthcare,
can say it. It doesn't make it free. You can say it, but it's not free. You're taxing people who don't necessarily use it.
Fine. Okay, I'll be specific. Mr. Scott. You know, socialized healthcare is just healthcare for everybody paid for by taxes. Okay, but healthcare for everybody paid for by taxes has.
But you're mandating that everybody pays for it.
Okay, and Donald Trump's mandating that you pay for $100 billion per year industrial military complexes. He's a fucking communist, right? Whoa.
Look, there's certain things in a society What?
So just to make it clear, right, our government always mandates that we pay for things, and they decide what we pay for via Congress and the legislation they pass. That's because they have the power of the purse, and we vote the representatives into Congress. So in other words, if you just want to say whatever our congressmen and women decide to spend money on, that's them forcing us to spend our money on shit, and that's socialism. We're going to dictate who's more or less socialist based upon how much money they spend, because all money spent is forced under your view. This means that according to your own stance, that Donald Trump is more of a socialist than Biden or Harris because he spent twice as much as they did in his first term compared to theirs, as well as he now wants to force our government to spend an estimated $4 trillion on the BBB, which is almost twice as much as all of Biden and Harris's non-COVID related expenditure in one bill compared to what they spent in 4 years. So Donald Trump is quite the socialist under your view.
It's a fair point what you're saying, but that's not where I was coming from. I think with the military, like every single country has to defend itself, but in this country, the way it originated, healthcare was never a right. Okay, so we need munitions.
So the way in which it originated, healthcare was never a right. With the founding fathers of this country, healthcare was never a right.
Was it?
So it should never be a right. That's your argument, right?
I'm just saying. I'm not saying it should never be.
Then what's the implication of? We didn't have an income tax. So what's the implication of what you're saying here, there, bud? Because if your argument against socialized healthcare is that the founding fathers of America didn't want socialized healthcare, okay. Well, they also didn't want black people to be anything more than property. So I don't think that using what the founding fathers of America wanted as a standard to divinate what we should or shouldn't do is really that smart of an idea, man.
Well, one thing would have nothing to do with the other, because we obviously accept all races, all religions in this country.
Oh, would you say we got it? We did it?
There was already an abolitionist movement back then when this country was created.
Would you say it would be bad if we did it?
We were the second country in the entire world to free slaves and have an abolitionist movement. So I'm not agreeing with what you're saying.
I have a question. Would it be bad if we did it?
It was a different time back then. That was every country, not just this country.
It was every country. So you're just telling me
it was everywhere.
that the transatlantic slave trade and impacted more countries than just America, and that individuals from Africa were not just enslaved in America, but also enslaved in Jamaica, also enslaved in South America. Good
it wasn't
job.
limited to black folks.
That's history, man.
It was slavery all over the world.
Okay.
It wasn't just limited to African Americans.
Oh, it wasn't just limited to black people. I'm always really curious. What, like, you want to say, like, white people were enslaved in Ireland? I think that even Ireland recognizes that it wasn't chattel slavery, it was indentured servitude. And, like, I can think of an example of, like, white people being enslaved in, like, ancient Rome. Okay, but I don't know why this is relevant. And the reason why I say I don't know why this is relevant is because I kind of feel like when people make this argument, oh, slavery was in more places just like than just America, or maybe we could point towards ancient Rome 6,000 years ago and show how white people were also enslaved for a period of time. I mean, what's the implication here? Are you basically saying that we should just therefore take slavery in America less seriously? Is that the conclusion of the argument? I want to know what the conclusion of these statements are. Because you're obviously saying them for a reason.
About this. We were talking about healthcare, and you made the argument. Well, we also had slavery, in the beginning of the country.
Yeah, because because we're talking about socialized. I'll tell you
why did we go off on this tangent?
Of course, I don't mind informing you. Right? I'll inform
You're not
you here.
informing me.
I am informing you because you made this argument. Well, it's not what the founding fathers wanted, and then I was able to point out that the founding fathers didn't want a whole lot. Right, including rights for black people. Okay, so therefore we shouldn't use the founding fathers' desires to run our country.
Well, some did, some didn't, but most were abolitionists.
If most of them were abolitionists, then how come slavery was explicitly condoned in the Constitution they made?
How come slavery was explicitly condoned?
Yeah, like most of the founding fathers that drafted the Constitution were against slavery. How come in the original Constitution, slavery was specifically condoned in it, and it was only in the later 1800s that we had an amendment banning it. And now you're going to say, Dean, it's a different time. Well, the difference about the time was that they thought it was okay, refuting your original claim that majority of them were abolitionists.
John Adams was an abolitionist. George Washington was not. Jefferson obviously was not. Okay, but you had plenty that were. Most countries were moving that way.
Okay, I don't even care. Listen, I don't believe that they were abolitionists, or else they wouldn't have put their signature in a document in which forced Americans, if they see an escaped slave, to return them to their captor, else face legal punishment. I don't think that a slavery abolitionist would have put their signature on that piece of paper.
Say whatever you want. I don't even know why we're talking about this, because I think right now we both agree slavery was wrong. Why are we talking about this?
Okay, well, once again, I told you, you just can't fucking track. Your original argument against socialized healthcare is that we shouldn't have it because the founding fathers didn't want it. And for the third time, the founding fathers didn't want a lot of it.
I was using...
Okay, now please don't interrupt me, Scott. You were interrupting me. You were interrupting me.
Go ahead.
Because I want to go back to the very first thing that you said. The very first thing that you said was that Democrats are socialists. I asked you a question you haven't been able to answer. Name one socialist policy of Democrats.
I gave you one. I gave you healthcare.
Socialized healthcare is not socialist.
It is socialist because hold on. Let me explain. You're mandating that certain people who want it, you're mandating that certain people who don't want it have to pay for it. So if the younger population who doesn't usually buy into healthcare because they're already healthy, they don't think about that kind of stuff, you are mandating that they pay towards it. And they don't want it. So it's a redistribution of wealth.
Wait, so you understand that's all taxes, right?
Yeah, I understand.
So would you say that taxation
I don't
socialist?
agree with a lot of the tax code either.
Wait. So I just want to clarify. Would you say that taxation as a whole is socialist?
In a sense, in lots of ways, sure.
Okay, so whoever.
Well, we didn't always have taxes, did we? On income,
God.
we didn't always have an income tax.
Oh, God, Jesus Christ. Okay, so if all taxation is socialist, then we could determine which party is more socialist based upon which party. Excuse me.
I didn't even say that, but I did say that.
Okay,
it's a form.
Okay,
I said
so if you think that all taxation is socialist, then we could identify which party is more socialist based upon which party wants to spend more of our tax dollars, right?
Well, I would say the Democrats do.
I don't want to. I just want a yes or no. Like, can we, under your logic, we could determine which party is more socialist depending upon which party wants to spend more of our tax dollars, right?
To spend more of the tax dollars? No, because I would agree with you. I think a lot of times Republicans. I think there's.
No, you're on mute because now you're just contradicting yourself and you have no fucking clue what you're saying. So the reason why this would follow from your view is because you said that socialized healthcare is socialist because you're mandating people to spend their tax dollars on things that they don't want to. Okay, well, that doesn't just apply to socialized healthcare. That applies to everything. That applies to the military. That applies to public highways. That applies to anything that our government does. That applies to the studies done by AI PAC. Like it applies, not AI PAC. Jesus Christ, fuck AI PAC. Okay, I'm talking about anything else in our government that we spend money on. So basically, any time that our government spends money, it's socialist because some of the people that are paying through tax dollars don't want to do it. So in other words, we're just going to try to determine which party wants to spend more money, and they're therefore going to be more socialist, right?
Sorry, can you hear me? I wouldn't frame it exactly like that.
But
I see where you're going.
So if you wouldn't frame it like that, then you don't think that our government spending our tax dollars is socialist.
Can you hold on one second?
Of course, but like that's just absurd.
Just let me explain. All right. If you're going to frame it as who wants to spend more, once people are already in Congress, all right, they're spending, baby. It's a uniparty. They're all bad. All right. I'll give it to you. But if you were going to frame it as in who actually is running on that, which party is running on?
I'm cutting you off. Here's why. You said when our government spends our tax dollars, that's socialist. Under that view, we would be able to identify which party's more socialist by how much spending they like, how much spending they want, how much spending they accept. Okay, this is like saying that when you kill an innocent person, that's murder. So under that view, we would be able to determine if person A or person 2 supports murder more based upon how many people they've murdered. Okay, imagine person 1 has murdered 10 people and person 2 has murdered 100 people. Person 2 is going to support murder more than person 1 because they've murdered more people. They're going to be a worse murderer than person 1 because they've murdered more people. So if our government is spending, if our government spending money as socialist, this means whatever party is going to spend more money is more socialist. Right, Scott? And for all the people saying that I should let him talk, if I let him talk, my brain is going to explode and my eyeballs are going to shoot out of my head.
I think you're just framing it wrong, Dean. I think you're just framing it wrong.
Tell me where I went wrong in my logic. You think that our government spending money is socialist,
I just
right?
told you. I don't even know what. I think we're beating a dead horse here because you and I are just going to disagree.
Well, then you're the fucking dead horse, Scott, because I'm just simply taking your view and trying to extrapolate the logical outcomes. Like, if you think that I'm beating a dead horse for making the most simple implication from your line of reasoning whatsoever, then you're the fucking dead horse. Like, Scott, you said that okay, I'm going to ask you for yes or no's. Unmute your mic. We're going to go yes or no. Universalized healthcare is socialist because some people are going to disagree with their government spending our tax dollars on it. Yes or no?
I don't like the way you're framing it.
That was your argument.
If it's a redistribution of wealth and you're mandating that certain people pay for something,
see, this is why I want to mute him. I want want to click the button. I want to click the button to mute him. The reason why I want to click the button to mute him right now so fast, even though he just started talking, is because he said that you don't like the way I'm framing it. Sir, I just repeated your own argument. You're the one that said universalized socialized healthcare was socialist because it is a case that some people that are paying for it with their tax dollars will disagree with it. That was your argument, right?
Yes. Yes.
But you just told me when I asked you if that was your argument that you didn't like the way I was framing it. So therefore, you don't like the way you're framing it.
No. That's not exactly what was said, Dean.
The question I asked you is, do you think that socialized healthcare is socialist because some people that will be paying for it through their tax dollars will disagree with it?
Not disagree. They won't want it. Okay, but if you're going to mandate, Dean,
Scott, disagreeing with it and not wanting it is the same thing.
Dean, a lot of people disagree with certain things, okay, but they pay into it. They're by their free will, they're okay with it. All right, I disagree on paying for certain things, but I know that it's it's okay for everybody else, so I pay into it. Okay, but with a mandate,
then you don't disagree
with
with
a
it.
mandate.
Then you don't fucking disagree with it. If you're okay with it, then you don't disagree with it.
Whichever. We'll disagree on the language, fine, and I'll just concede to you for whatever. Dean, but listen to me.
What the fuck?
You're framing the question wrong because you were asking.
The question was your argument.
No, it was you're framing it wrong. I don't understand why you don't see it. I really don't.
Lose my mind.
I don't understand why you don't see it.
So I want to clarify. Your argument for why socialized healthcare is socialist is because it forces people to spend their money on something that they don't want to spend it on, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that was the question I asked you. I said,
well,
so
it's also a redistribution.
So once again, I'll just re-ask you the goddamn question. So you think
is it a redistribution of wealth?
No.
It's not a redistribution of wealth? Universal healthcare? Socialized healthcare? It's not a redistribution of wealth?
Well, actually, we should do further examination. What do you mean by redistribution of wealth?
You're taking money from one set of the population, and you're using that population to offset the other part, right? Okay. There's money going from one part of the population to the other part of the population, and it's not just on healthcare; it's on lots of programs. But healthcare was a huge part, and it was like 20% of the economy, was it not?
Okay, so do you just disagree? Okay, so if you just well, I already told you that a redistribution of wealth is not socialism.
Okay.
And the only reason why this would be a redistribution of wealth is not because of socialized healthcare, but because of progressive tax rates. Wow. Did you know that if we charged everybody, regardless of their income, the same amount of money in taxes, that we would still be able to have socialized healthcare without any redistribution in wealth? Meaning that a redistribution of wealth is not intrinsic, essential, or necessary to socialized healthcare? And if you're taking an issue with the redistribution of wealth of socialized healthcare or any system of benefit, you're not taking issue with the system of benefit, you're taking issue with the progressive system of taxation.
Well, that would be fine if everybody was working the same job and getting the same paycheck, but not everybody is doing that. You know, you have some people that are putting more risk into their job and their life. So you have makers and you have takers.
I will re-ask the question. I'm dead set on making the argument that I've been trying to make for 30 fucking minutes. Okay? The question is, do you disagree with socialized healthcare? Because it's forcing people to pay for things that they don't want to pay for. And that's why you think it's socialist. Also, for everybody that doesn't like the fact that I'm muting him, leave the live. I'm not going to concede to your desires. So can you please answer that question, sir?
I just answered it.
Was it with a yes or a no?
You muted me, and something happened here. Go ahead, ask it again. You muted it, and something happened here. Go ahead and ask it again.
How much should Charlie Kirk pay you to join this live?
Nothing.
No. Let me see let me see your bank transcript right fucking now. I don't believe you.
Why?
Because there's no way that this isn't like manufactured.
I don't understand.
You're not.
Why?
You have to be following a script right now. This has to be intentional.
I'm not following the script.
Okay. The question is the reason why you disagree with socialized healthcare and the reason you think it's socialist is because it's forcing people to pay for things that they don't want to pay for.
I already said yes.
Okay, great.
And I said that's with a lot of programs and taxation in general.
Can we agree that everything that a government spends taxes on will force us to pay for it because it's our money that's being paid in the taxes, and B, some people are going to disagree with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's for everything, not just socialized healthcare, for everything. So this means
I had already said that.
So this means every time our government spends money, it's socialist, right?
No, not necessarily.
Okay,
but I get where you're coming from.
Okay, well, so then, what's the reason why you think that socialized healthcare is socialist? Because it's not because it's forcing people to spend money on it and they disagree with it. Because if that was your reasons why you thought it was socialist, then you'd think everything is socialist, but you don't. So therefore, those are not your reasons.
It's a means of distribution.
What do you even mean by that?
Like with everything, but it is. I understand your point with the military, and I think
no. I want to go back to the question. Why do you think that socialized healthcare is socialist?
Because it's a huge chunk of government. It's just a much larger program.
So it's
just a much larger program.
Our largest program is the military. So you think the military is socialist?
No, I don't.
So then you don't think that healthcare is socialist because it's a large chunk, because the military is a larger one, and you don't think that the military is socialist. So why would socialized healthcare be socialist?
Is the military larger? I wouldn't know. I know we spend almost like 850. What do we spend? 850 billion on the military?
That's super relevant. Okay. Now, please tell me why you think.
Well,
that
you said it was larger. I just wanted to make sure.
But I want to know why you think that socialized healthcare is socialist.
Because it's 20% of the economy, Dean.
Okay.
So
is the military.
It's huge.
So is the military. But you don't think that the military is socialist. So therefore, that's not the reasons why you think that socialized healthcare is socialist. It gets to a point, Scott, where if you use 3 brain cells, you'd be able to track this conversation.
I understand what you're saying. I'm trying to figure out how to frame it. Like I don't believe that the military is socialist because I believe probably everybody wants to be protected or have some sort of form of
Does everybody
protection.
want to spend $800 billion on it? And also, no, that's not true. Communists, they don't want a military.
And
anarcho-libertarians, wait. I want to clarify there that you're actually wrong. So communists don't want a military. Not at all, because they don't want a state. Only states have militaries. Anarcho-libertarians don't want a military because the military is managed by a state. They don't want a state either. Any type of anarchist, whether that's an anarcho-libertarian, an anarcho-socialist, an anarcho-capitalist, an any form of anarchy or communism, they don't want a military. So there's a lot of people that just straight up don't want a military. So you're wrong.
Interesting. Okay. I would think that most people who are citizens of a country would want that country to provide some sort of protection for them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So now you're shifting the goalposts from saying that it goes from everybody has to agree to it to most people have to agree to it. So fun fucking fact. The policymakers that would be enacting socialized healthcare would only be doing it because most people voted for them because they wanted them to enact their policy of socialized healthcare. Yeah, so if there ever came a day where we had a Democrat in office that put socialized healthcare in place, it would be because most people wanted it. So if your standard is it's not socialist if most people want it, if socialized healthcare was ever implemented, it wouldn't be socialist because most people would want it.
Okay, so Do we not have a socialized healthcare system in this country? Is that what you're saying?
Not for everybody, no.
Are we trying to emulate the healthcare system of, like, say, other countries, like European countries? Like, what
None of this matters. Because,
well, I'm asking, why did we change it? What was the reason why
none of this. Wait, I'm not here to debate the efficacy of socialized healthcare with you. I'm here to debate the fact that you think it's socialist.
Okay, so you're explaining to me why it's not. But
yeah,
what I'm saying
because socialism is where the workers own the means of production, Scott. The means of production and who owns them has nothing to do with socialism, Scott. You're trying to call a square circle there, little bro.
So then why was it? Why would the Democrats? Why do we have Obamacare then?
What the fuck does Obamacare have to do with what I just said? What? Dude. Oh my God. Wait. No. So imagine that you told me that you voted for Trump because you don't like abortion. So then I was like, well, then why did Mr. Beast just build 5 schools in Libya? Like, something completely irrelevant. That has nothing to do with what you said. Nothing to do with any type of response. No, we were talking about how you think that socialized healthcare is socialist. Then I define socialism as, well, what the textbook definition of socialism is where the workers own the means of production. And I pointed out how the workers owning the means of production have nothing to do with socialized healthcare. Then you're like, but Obamacare. What? What does Obamacare have to do with socialism?
Well, it's not exactly how it went, but okay. But I brought it up. I brought it up because before Obamacare, healthcare seemed much better.
I don't give a fuck. We're not here to debate the efficacy of different healthcare systems. We're here to debate right now if socialized healthcare is socialist. Okay? I want to make that clear. We are not debating the efficacy of socialized healthcare. We're debating if it's socialist.
Now. So if I concede to you that our healthcare system is not socialist.
No. You got to concede that socialized healthcare is not socialist.
I'm sorry, what did you just say? Socialized healthcare is not socialist? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's say I concede to you, socialized healthcare is not socialist.
Okay, then we go back to the original question of what socialist policy does the Democrat Party support? Because the reason that you told me that you don't support the Democrat policies is because they're socialist. So then it'd just go back to the original question.
Okay, then I'm just using the wrong language then.
Support. Okay.
So you're going to help me out here, and you're saying to me that I'm using the wrong language. So
then why don't? So then why do you support Trump?
Socialist. I guess it's not socialist.
Then why do you support Trump?
Well, I did want to get rid of Obamacare. I don't like the healthcare system.
Okay, well, good.
I thought it was much better before.
Okay, he's not even doing that though.
He was before.
No, he wasn't. Now, wait. Do we have Obamacare?
I'm sorry?
Do we have Obamacare?
We don't have Obamacare?
How could you hear what I say then say the opposite? I asked you if we have Obamacare.
I'm asking you, do we not?
We do.
Obamacare doesn't exist anymore?
It does.
Did we get rid of it?
No.
No, right. So
then Donald Trump didn't repeal the ACA before.
Well, his intent was to do it in the first term, and then that got squashed because of John McCain.
No, he just never did it because he never had anything to replace it with. He still doesn't.
You don't need anything to replace it with. You just squash it and go back to what we had, which was no Obamacare. Okay. I liked it a lot better before.
Okay, no, the reason that Congress will not just remove and repeal the ACA. Congress won't do that. Congress will maybe only replace the ACA. Okay? I want to make that incredibly clear. That's why it never got done in his first term. Oh, okay. So you agree that Congress would only repeal the ACA if they had something to replace it with. And you also agree that Donald Trump has nothing to replace it with. So then you concede that Donald Trump is not getting rid of the ACA. So because you concede that Donald Trump is not getting rid of the ACA, why do you support Trump for something he's not going to do? That's like me saying that I supported Kamala Harris because she was going to give everybody $1 billion. Okay, she wasn't ever going to do it. So why would that make me support her?
I didn't think that he wasn't necessarily not going to do it.
Okay, well now
Okay.
no, yes you did. Yes you did. You just conceded that. Once again, Scott, you
No,
said
I
that
think
you
it was-
agreed
no.
you agreed that Congress would only repeal the ACA if Donald Trump had something to replace it with. Donald Trump has said he doesn't. Therefore, Donald Trump will not be able to repeal the ACA. You did concede that they will not get rid of the ACA.
I
You did
conceded
concede.
I conceded that Congress would not, but I believe that they would be very reluctant to.
Okay,
because
so
it
then
would
so then
probably-
Donald Trump will not be able to get rid of the ACA. Got it.
Well, you're putting words in my mouth.
I'm
What I was
not.
going to-
I'm literally not.
what I was
I'm
going to
literally not.
continue saying,
It's called a
Dean,
premise by premise. It's called an argument. Premise number one: you agree and you affirm that Congress will only get rid of the ACA given they have something to replace it to. You accepted that. Premise number two: Donald Trump has nothing to replace the ACA with. Conclusion: Donald Trump will never be able to get Congress to repeal the ACA. It's not me putting words into your mouth. It is the logically entailed conclusion from what you believe in. I'm going crazy. I'm losing my shit. I'm putting words in your mouth? That's a logically entailed conclusion. Bro, this guy has like no sense of... I want to ask you a question. If you answer this question incorrectly, I'm going to kick you. Premise number one, Socrates is a man. Premise number two, all men are mortal. What is the conclusion of this two-premise syllogism?
What is the premise to what?
Premise number one, Socrates is a man.
Socrates is a man.
Premise number two, all men are mortal. What is the conclusion of this two-premise syllogism?
I didn't understand the last word you said. To premise what?
Argument.
I don't even understand what that means. What am I supposed to conclude from it?
Yeah.
That all men are mortal? Is Socrates is mortal?
Thank you for only reading that once the chat said it. I just punished myself. I don't know. Why did I do that to myself?